What happens when the, I suppose, dream you've built turns into the cage you can't escape from? Today, my guest Alex Morin takes us on what is quite a raw, honest journey from chasing success and losing himself to facing truth, deep forgiveness, and rebuilding life from the inside out. It's a story about death, rebirth, and the moment between breaths. Both my version of that and Alex's version of that, where everything changes. You're listening to Uncharted, the Entrepreneur's Adventure Podcast, and we are all about inspiring purpose and adventure in today's and the future's entrepreneurs. Subscribe, like, share, and also keep your eyes peeled for partway through the episode, where I will be sharing something I'm really excited about. And something I've been working on ever since we started recording the show, because it's not far from dropping. So yes, keep your eyes out. Again, subscribe, like, share, and enjoy the show. Alex, thanks for joining us on the show. It's great to have you here. Why don't you, because I've obviously read your guest application form to come onto the show, so I've got a slight understanding of your story, and I don't like to do too much research before the show because I want the conversation to be natural and I want it to flow naturally as well. So why don't you give us a bit of background as to who you are, what you do now, and how you got to where you are now?
Sure. It's a long story, Ian. And first of all, thanks for having me on your show. It's an honor to be speaking with you. I love these types of candid conversations. And just like anyone else on the planet, my story is long and winding, but I'll give you an overview. And at any time, Ian, just drop in and go, "Whoa, dude, that's interesting. Let's delve into that a little bit more," just so that I'm not monologuing the entire time. But I grew up in Canada on the West Coast in Vancouver, to what I would call a normal family. I had a mom and a dad. I still have a mom. My dad passed away when I was 21 years old. And I grew up with a brother and a sister. And, when I say normal, it means that I went to school, I played sports, I had friends, I ate, I played. Life seemed pretty normal to me. And I carried that through, went to university, met someone in university, ended up moving to Toronto, getting married over here. And one of my loves, Ian, growing up was music. I loved music. I sang all my life. I played piano, saxophone, guitar, you name it. Like, I just love it. And I even sang opera professionally for a number of years. And that was a ton of fun. And so when I moved to Toronto, it was the year was 1999, which would have put me at 24 years old. I'm 50 now. And when I moved to Toronto, it made sense. My girlfriend at the time was from Toronto. Toronto had a vibrant music scene, and I figured, okay, like, if there's anywhere to move in Canada, let's go to Toronto and make a go of music. And I did that for a few years, playing in various bands and enjoying local level success, but never accomplishing my goal of wanting to be a famous musician, touring worldwide with albums and cachet and creativity being used. That just didn't happen. We could talk about that another day, all kinds of reasons why that didn't happen, but essentially, at some point, I decided that I wanted a corporate job. I wanted the stability of money to come in because I figured I would get married and to my girlfriend. In fact, I may have already proposed to her at that point. So I wanted the stability. And so in the year 2001, I joined a corporation, and I worked in that corporation for the next 14 years. Is that right? No, it would have been longer than that. It would have been 19 years. 19 years. Holy smokes. So in 2001, I started, and I maintained the goal of wanting to be a musician. I said to myself, okay, Alex, you're only going to be doing this job for a few months, and then you're going to get signed and you're going to take off in music, and that'll be it. But, that first year turned into another year, then turned into 19 years, Ian. And
what was the kind of moment that made you think, I've got to get a 9 to 5 now? What was there a particular moment in time that you can remember that kind of gave you that
Yeah.
feeling of having to step
Yeah,
away from the dream almost?
it's a wonderful question. It would be easy to blame that on your partner, right? I think a lot of people do. I think a lot of people like look at their partner and say, "Oh, well, my partner wants this or my partner wants that." Um, for me, I think I understood that that was the evolution of a relationship. That after one is together for a long time and you're in love, one gets married, and then when one gets married, one buys a house, and then one has kids, and then you keep on going. So that question is a really interesting question because it demonstrates the degree to which I was ensconced in the mindset of the majority of our population who believe that this happens and then that happens and then that happens and then that happens. So I saw the pattern, and it would have been of my own volition that I said, okay, it's time to get a job so we can afford a house and get a mortgage, right? So I was really following the current of what so many people in society do. And that current was taking me further away from my dream, from my essence, from my love, which was music. Right. So cool question. And then I continued to work for the next 19 years. And I eventually was divorced from my wife. And we went our separate ways. Maybe we got married too early. Maybe we had different visions. We had 2 kids together. Um, but it felt natural. It felt right for both of us. And that was an important moment in my life. I held on to lots of things in that separation and after that divorce. I held on to things like my identity being tied to money, and battling the notion of what I deemed to be unjust, spousal support or support. I look at it a little bit differently today, but these were some of the battles that I faced, and I think that a lot of people in the world face. Right, that, like if you think that the routine is to fall in love and then get married and then get a house and then have kids, part of that routine is to get divorced, right, Ian? So
Yeah.
when over 50% of the population these days gets divorced, that is the current, right? That is the current. And when I was in that current, I was sucked into the things that are challenging in that current, and that is the financial aspect, the relationship with kids, and what that looks like in this new incarnation. So it certainly formulated me. It made me a little bit more jaded with regard to relationships, and I began to become quite cynical of the system and how justice is set up with regard to particularly how men are treated post-divorce. So a lot of things were going on at that time. But look, I've always had an ability to rally. I've always had an ability to see the positive and to move forward. And I chose to move forward in the best way that I knew how. And that was to follow what I believed was the ideal of success. And at that time, success meant to me that I would have another spectacular relationship, a gorgeous wife, a fabulous house, an awesome car, kids who are thriving, and lots of money. And that's what I followed. I followed that. And today, I will tell you that um, most of those things are unimportant. They are not the truth. Some of them are great if that's what you want, and I think that's wonderful if you pursue what you want and know why you want it. But I don't think I knew that I wanted it. I don't think I knew that I didn't line it up with my heart.
Surface level, right? Just surface level stuff.
Yeah, very surface level, very go with society, very go with the current, I guess, is what we happen to be, the metaphor we happen to be using today. So I did that for years and years and years. and and then came, well, I okay, let's back up a little bit. I met a woman at my place of employment, at the place I worked, and she became my girlfriend, and we had a child together, and then we got married. And her name is Sarah. She is still my wife. I love her to pieces. This was the beginning of my second relationship. And I'll tell you the secret behind that relationship, the very negative secret behind that relationship. But before I tell you that, Ian, I will say that I continued working in that corporation. I continued chasing these false ideals, and those false ideals, they spilled into my personal life, into my relationship, into every aspect of my life, following what wasn't true to my heart. And in the year 2020, something unbelievable happened. I was sitting around a dinner table with my wife and my oldest daughter, who's 23 now. Do the math, take 5 years off at that time, and her boyfriend. So the four of us were sitting at the table. We're playing cards, having a lovely night on a summer evening. And my daughter looks at her phone and she says, "Oh my God." And she startles and she says, "Brady's been jumped." Brady's my son. He's my oldest son. He's 21 now. At the time, he would have been 16. And Brady's an interesting guy. My son. He's a guy who marches to the beat of his own drum. He's a guy who follows his heart. And prior to him being jumped, his heart told him that he needed to defend a boy who was being harassed at a skate park. And so this unfolded in the months before this fateful text came in. And he realized that a young boy was being antagonized by a much older boy in the skate park one day. And so my son decided that since he knew the older boy, he would send him a message and let him know that, hey, stop bothering this kid. He's way younger than you. You have no business bothering this kid. Well, that text and that reverberation, that vibration that transferred through the phone that evening when he must have sent that note to the antagonizer resulted in that person really fixating his obsession on my son now. This guy's going to get it from me. And on the night that we were playing cards, that guy got it from him. So in a park, my son was hanging out with some friends. A car showed up. Several young men jumped out of the car with weapons, and they stabbed my son in the abdomen. And he was taken away in a hospital and rushed to the trauma center, which is around the same time that we got that text, "Brady's been jumped." I jumped in my car. I didn't know exactly which park it was. I went to the wrong park at first. I made it to the second park. There were lights everywhere, police car lights, fire truck lights, people, just if you see it in a movie, Ian, the lights are flashing and it's like a face, no face, a face, no face, tree, no tree, tree, no, and you think in images, everything is imagery. And I fixated my attention on a police officer who I saw, and I went right to the police officer and I said, "Where's my son?" And it's incredible when we're in the moment, the way that we can transcend language. So the police officer didn't have to say, "Who are you? Are you the father of the person, the victim?" None of that was necessary. It was an absolute knowing. And he looked at me dead in the eyes and he said, "Your son's in an ambulance on the way to Sunnybrook." And Sunnybrook is the trauma center in Toronto. So they didn't go to our local hospital, which is a gigantic hospital, but not a trauma center. So the very fact that he was going to Sunnybrook meant, fuck, this is not good. My heart jumped. They indicated that he was alive and there was a police officer traveling with him, and that they were making their way there. And so I ultimately ended up heading directly to the hospital. And a few interesting things happened on the way to the hospital. So, when you're in this moment of unknowingness, like I was, is my son going to make it or is he not going to make it? You're in an in-between period and everything slows down. Everything. Life stops. And I was driving down the 404 freeway, just about to enter the exit ramp onto the 401 freeway, Canada's busiest freeway. And my daughter and her boyfriend were in the car, and there was not a lot of talk between us. I think we were all thinking and processing. I happened to look out the front window and see the moon in the sky. And I looked at that moon, and in the infinite space and time that existed for me in that particular moment, I I thought, how beautiful, how unbelievably beautiful is that moon. And to this day, I don't know what that metaphor was about, but I followed that moon across the 401, down the street to the hospital. And it was the height of the COVID-19 pandemic. Nobody was allowed in the hospitals, but that wasn't going to stop me. And I insisted that I was going into the hospital. And they let me in. There was no fight. I just did what I was going to do. And I got in the hospital. And I was alone in a massive atrium that I would imagine would probably house hundreds of people on a busy night at the emergency department. You could just imagine all the people there and the coughing and the crying and the holding of lacerations. But I was the only person there, the only person. And it was dark and no lights were on. And it was peaceful in a serene way, and I was still in that in-between moment. Will he live? Will he not live? And eventually, the doctor came out and explained that we operated on your son. This is what we did, and he proceeded to tell me, and your son is fine, and he's going to live. And that's the moment where the in-between leaves, and you are now in another moment. And now things are moving quickly, and I'm updating family, and the kids are in the car, but I'm in the hospital, and they've been there for hours. But and they're older, so they're fine by themselves. But now everything speeds up. So, Ian, that was the a humongous turning point in my life, and only recently have I been able to piece together a little bit of a story around that. And my story about that evening and about that stabbing is that on the evening that Brady was stabbed, I was too. I felt that I was too. And I would have told you, even only a few weeks ago, that my ego was annihilated on that evening. And that would be accurate. And I would have told you my ego died on that evening. Brady didn't, but my ego did. And that would be inaccurate. And what I've discovered only recently is that it didn't die, but it's been so mortally wounded that only recently have I been able to say bye to it and actually allow it to die. It was a 5-year process between that fateful evening in 2020 in the summer and this moment now that I'm talking. That whole stretch was an ego death. And I didn't realize it until recently. But that fateful moment changed everything about my life, everything about my life. When I drove home that evening, because I wasn't able to stay in the hospital, obviously, due to the COVID pandemic, when I drove home that evening, I called my wife and I said, yeah, I'm quitting. I'm done. You're done what, Alex? Yeah, I'm done. I'm going to call the board of directors and I will be resigning tomorrow. I'm finished. And, in 2020, that would have been a 19-year career, right? So Sarah, has always been so supportive of my decisions, anything I want to do. And she said, okay, all right, okay. And I did. I called and I resigned my position. And of course, the company asked if I would reconsider and maybe I would want to give it some time. Why don't you give it as much time as you like? Weeks? You want to take a couple of months? Like, take the time. I had just finished investing in the company. I had just helped sell the company, and then I rebought part of the company. So I was very much vested in this company. And so I did. I took them up on that. That was a really kind move of them to say, take the time you need. And I did. And 30 days later, I still knew beyond a shadow of a doubt, I need to leave. I don't want to be here. I never wanted to be there. I wanted to be a musician. I wanted to follow my heart. But along the way, I found lots of friends and I met my wife there and I had lots of fabulous moments, but I had moments that were so torturous in retrospect that damaged a lot of people that I knew I needed to get out. And so Brady's stabbing and the mortal wounding of my ego precipitated the jump from that company that I never had the courage to take in those first 19 years, because I thought about it a million times, Ian, as everyone does. Oh God, I can't wait till I leave this company. I want to leave this company. And you have visions of it, like, like I'm going to tell the boss this, or I'm going to go be doing this. And so whatever it is you attach to, whatever image it is, you think about that. And I mean, gosh, I thought about it pretty much every day. Um, yeah, I'd rather be elsewhere, but this company pays me a lot of money, and I have a lot of flexibility to get into all sorts of shit that I shouldn't be getting into, and I did that. So that's phase one. That's like act one of my life, and then having no job now, and it necessitates, well, look, you're pretty young still, Alex. This would have been 5 years ago. I would have been 45 years old. Like, you don't have enough to retire on, mostly, but you probably want to create some safety there. So you probably want to bring some money in. And so this was an opportunity for me to do something on my own, do something that was my creation. And I did that. I started a few companies, some with partners and some all by myself. And it was a fascinating time of intense learning and frustration as I battled that ego that was absolutely still hanging on, because that ego told me, you're awesome at what you do. You will succeed immediately. And I didn't. I didn't. I mean, I didn't like rake in the dough the first few years. It was hard to get clients, much more challenging than I thought it would be. I blocked myself due to my own insecurities. I was afraid of rejection. All of these things were like just hitting me one after the next. And what's interesting is that I didn't see them for a very long time. That the lessons just kept on hitting me. I have a bump on my head. You can probably see it in the glisten here. And that bump developed at some point between Brady being stabbed and today. And I would say it was probably about 3 years ago that it just started to develop. I've had it checked at the doctor. There's nothing wrong with it, Alex. The ultrasounds show that it's just, there's a technical word for it. I forget what it is, but it's totally cool. And today I laugh at this bump on my head, and I just say, that was me hitting myself against a wall over and over and over and over again. Every time I was confronted with a lesson, I didn't look at it. I just hit it again, and I was like, you can do this. Like, you always do this. You always succeed. Go, go, go. And that's just me metaphorically smashing my head. And I, yeah.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to chuckle, but that sounds exactly like what I was doing as well when I was first starting out. I think everybody does, don't they?
I know, it is humorous. Like, I'm getting warm, so I'm going to take my jacket off here. But look, I laugh now, and it's a beautiful reminder. It's just a beautiful reminder of, don't live like that, Alex. Have humility and see yourself and learn from yourself and learn from everything around you. And look, I probably still hit walls, but there's probably a lot more padding on those walls these days. And I probably don't run into them at the velocity at which I was running into them only a few years ago, damn it. So it's fascinating. So here's the next sort of phase, if you're curious about the next phase. The next phase.
I'll come back to my questions. Don't worry.
Oh, please, don't interrupt me, Ian. I'd love to go anywhere. Go for it.
Okay, so first of all, I'm glad your son's okay.
Thank you.
And I don't have children, so I cannot even imagine what that moment was like. I get so emotionally angry and just reactive when I'm walking my dog and another dog comes over because I know my dog's been like attacked previously, and so he's always on edge. And so I'm probably not helping the situation by being a little on edge myself. But in those moments, I get a little nervous and my energy changes. So I cannot even imagine if it was your son. So
Yeah.
I'm glad he's okay. Um, Second thing just to say is I absolutely love the piano and the saxophone.
Oh, cool. Do you play?
No, if only. It
They're
just
great
soothes
instruments.
my soul.
Yeah.
I went to New Orleans when I was traveling around the US, and I just fell in love with that place.
Oh,
Away
me
from
too.
away from Bourbon Street, the main strip. I found like a little. I think it was. Is it the French Quarter? I don't know.
Yeah, Frenchman Street. Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
there's a little place as well that the locals told me to go to, and it was unbelievable. The guy on the saxophone there was just absolutely killing it. I had the night of my life, and I was on my own.
I believe it. It's a magical place. And look, we've been talking a lot about presence, right? About sort of being there and being in the moment. And when you're in New Orleans and you're watching a band perform live, and it's not a massive venue and it's not a tiny venue, and people are there and they're into it, that is the space between the breaths. That is when time stands still. And as a musician, you feel those moments. You are in the pocket, you are in the zone, and anything is possible. And you're feeding off. There's an awareness of everything happening instantaneously, and everything comes to you. And that there's a transference that happens when that is happening at that level from a musician. That is equally happening with the people in the audience. And so there you were in the French Quarters on Frenchman Street or wherever you happen to be, and you're feeling it. You're by yourself, and it is the most magical moment as you watch the piano keys just coming to life and the saxophone rocking and the band like in breathing together. It's just
I
it's
love the way you
yeah,
described it then as it's the moment between breaths. I'm going to steal
yeah,
that, by the way. I hope you don't mind.
yeah, 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 yeah. we're
Such a
gonna
good
get
way of
in
explaining it
we're
because
gonna get into that.
I struggle
We're
to
gonna really
articulate
go
that
ahead.
kind of thing, but I struggle to articulate that kind of moment. So that's a really good way of describing it. So thank you. Yeah.
If we have enough time, I'll get back to that actual philosophy because it's something that has recently occurred to me about that moment in between the breaths. But continuing the story, um, that changed everything, and I continued to hit my head against the wall, and I was even like I guess we're so used to routines and patterns that my first business that I created was consulting in the same industry that I was in, which I think a lot of business people do, right? You're a great accountant, you don't want to work for this company anymore, and so you become an accountant consultant, or or whatever. You just consult in the industry in which you have familiarity and comfort, right? So what happens then is you're around the same energy. Nothing really changes, right? It's like just the scenery changes a little bit, but you're speaking the same language, you're coaching the same things, and so I was like, well, this is a new life, but nothing's really changed. And I'm just keep on banging my head against the wall. So I just other opportunities came along, and I opened myself up to those opportunities. And one of them was a woman who I met. Her name is Marcy Barbaro, and Marcy is my partner at our business, Working Writers Co. And she told me that she had a really hard time finishing her book. She was in the midst of writing a book, and I think she had been writing it for about 2 years. And she said, it's lonely, it's like laborsome. I'm having a hard time getting it done. And she let me know, and I'm a writer. Like I was in journalism. I have a degree in English literature. I've worked at this media place and as a journalist at this place. And so I'm a writer, and I'm finding it difficult. And um, I helped her a little bit with the editing and accountability on her book. She had most of it done. I really didn't have to do a lot. But she said to me afterwards, she was so grateful for the help that I gave. And she said to me, Alex, look, I got the book done. It's now in publishing, but I know there are other people like me who find the process of writing a book to be difficult, challenging, lonely, isolating. Would you consider making a company with me that helps people write books? Because I have a degree in English literature as well. And I never told you what I did. I was in promotional advertising for those 19 years. And I could have been in any industry. It was all about communication, right? I was head of sales, head of marketing, on the executive management team, and then ultimately I became a partner when I bought part of the company. But I was using my communication and language skills all the time. I was writing blogs incessantly. I was writing in magazines incessantly. I was writing my own speeches, other people's speeches. I was a writer. I was a writer. And if I wasn't writing, I was speaking. And speaking is just another form of writing. You're just doing it orally, right? It's the same darn thing. It's just a story. It's just communication. And so that I had a talent for, the ability to be able to craft story that's compelling and interesting and relatable. And so I could do that quite easily with regard to the products and the services that we were selling in a way that was compelling and that aligned with a lot of the things I believed, and that made what we were selling saleable and purchasable. So where I'm going with this is that Marcy says, "Alex, would you do this with me?" And I said yes. I didn't even think about it. I'm like, yeah, I would do that, right? I had this company going, this consulting company, and I wasn't thoroughly enjoying it. I was learning, still banging my head against the wall, but I was learning, but it just wasn't bringing me the joy that I wanted when I quit. I'm like, well, I want a different life. I want to do something different. And so we started a company that helps people write books. And so anyone who has an idea and a desire to want to write a book but has never done it before, maybe they've even done it before but they found it challenging, or maybe they didn't even like their first book, they meet with us, and if they feel the connection, we help them write a book, and that normally spans about 6 months. And we've got various different levels of membership that will get you to the finish line, but we hold the space and we provide the skill and the training to help you write your own book. Today, I have different offerings. Like, you can write your own book and I will developmentally edit it, give you insights, inject you into a community where you're going to get peer feedback, all that kind of stuff. Or these days, I can even write the book for you and with you. So I'll interview you. You give me the stories, and I will ghostwrite the book, and I will incorporate the use of AI when I'm tooling outlines for chapters, and I will write it. And when I say I mean my partner also, Marcy Barbaro. She does equally as much as I do. So we will do this. So we've got different levels here, and it we're now on year 4, I think, approaching year 5, and it's evolved. This company, it's evolved into something that's really beautiful, with a vibrant community, with believable books that have now been published into the world, with authors who have utterly and completely transformed in the making of their own book and the creation of their own book, and has transformed the owners of the company, me and Marcy, enormously. So there was a time when we started, and even into the first few years, that we were still banging our heads. And that was ego. Like, gosh, Mars, like, we should be here, we should be there, just really attaching to where we want it to be. And perhaps not fully seeing the the what our business could be. So I want to pause here for a second, and I want to highlight something that's really important here. And the important part is the seeing your own business, seeing your own self, right? So an interesting thing happened to me when I moved to Ontario. I began to lose my ability to see distances. I'd always had wonderful eyesight. And so I went to the optometrist, I got a prescription, I got glasses, and lo and behold, I could see again. Great, fabulous. And as I continued my life in Ontario, I decided I don't want to wear these glasses anymore. And I had a resolute belief that I would be able to improve my vision. And I did, to the extent that I could see 20/20 again. So the glasses left, I could see. Then, somewhat recently, I would say about 3 years ago, I noticed that I couldn't see close up anymore. I'm like, oh my gosh, like that's starting to wane. That sucks. And when you talk to people about that, what do you think the response is, Ian? What do you think the response to that is? Yeah, yeah, it's like resignation. And it's like swimming down that same darn stream again. You're 100% right. And other answers to that question include, well, that's just old age. You know, that's what happens when you sit in front of a computer for this long, right? So you get all these, everyone has an answer for you. It's old age. It's sitting in front of a computer for so long. This is the prescription. This is what you need to do. Just do this. That's what you're supposed to do. And for 3 years, I've rejected that. I rejected it. Like, I know I'm not going to like, I can still read this if I go like that. I can still read it. I can still go to a restaurant and I can still read a menu as long as I pull it out a little bit. So I don't have 20/20 vision right now. I don't. But I'm getting to this idea and this notion of seeing oneself. So when we started working Writers Co., I don't think either of us were truly seeing ourselves, our capabilities, our strengths, where we shine. And so my vision continued to progressively get worse on the nearsightedness, if that's what it's called. I'll call it that. And only recently, we'll get into this in a little while, at the back end of this podcast, I deliberately chose to see myself. This is very recently. Okay. All right. It's time to see yourself. It's time to open your eyes, open your heart, and see yourself. And I got there by seeing my wife. That's how I got there. I saw her, and then I saw me. And over the last few days, what I have noticed is that a lot of the tension around my eyes that's been there for years now is dissipating. It's like, it's like when you exhale and it's like all of your bones and your muscle and everything loosens up. I feel that around my eyes right now. I don't know if clinically my eyesight is better today than it was 3 weeks ago. I feel it is. I can't tell you that scientifically yet because it's still blurry when I hold this up this close. And I know that in the past, I would have been able to read this. And I know that my 10-year-old son right now could read it like that, right? So the point of that is that I've recently done some work, and in seeing myself, in understanding myself, I have a growing belief that I am going to heal myself in every way, physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, all of those things. And so I wanted to point out, in relationship with Working Writers Co., that as this business has progressed over the last 4 years, there's been an ability to open those eyes wider and wider and truly see ourselves. And it has culminated most recently in 20/20 vision of what this company is, of how important a role we play in our company, of how we serve, and the vision of where it's going is incidental. It makes no difference. I know where it's going, but it doesn't matter anymore. It's not a picture that I hold on to. It's not a number that I hold on to. It's an inevitability that it's going exactly where it's supposed to go, and exactly the results that are meant to happen are going to happen, and they have been happening, and they are happening. And this is a gift that everyone on the planet is capable of giving themselves. Everybody. Everybody has the ability to see themselves. I didn't know this, but I do now. And when you see yourself, everything changes. Let's get back to that. I'm layering in all kinds of beautiful realizations that aren't necessarily in chronological order here, but in terms of the way we're speaking today, they make sense to me to share them with you at these particular moments.
We're going to take a quick break there because I've got something special to share with you. It's something I've been working on from probably the second episode that I recorded. So before we even released any episodes live to the public, something just started percolating at the back of my mind, an idea. And that idea has now come to life, and I want to share it with you. It's a community, a movement for adventure-driven entrepreneurs who will get early access to episodes. They'll get episodes that are not released to the public. Get live coaching calls on a monthly basis. You'll get monthly challenges. You'll get founders pricing on live events that are going to be coming up in 2026. Both live in person and live virtually as well. Also, we'll be leading retreats in 2026 and 2027 and beyond. And you'll get early founders pricing for those as well. And it's a community that is actually going to move you forward. So if you've been inspired by the stories that you've heard on the show and you want to become more purpose and adventure driven in your own lives, then I want you to head on over to the website that's on the screen now, or click the link in the show notes, and you'll be able to sign up for early access to the community at a discounted price. Now, back to the show. It's about to get really open and honest and raw now, so I hope you enjoy it. Again, subscribe, like, and share with anyone who you think would enjoy the conversation. Well, I was gonna ask you. You're talking about seeing yourself, but only after you saw your wife. Tell us about that and what you actually mean when you say, I saw my wife. What does that mean to you in that moment?
Thank you for that question. It's exactly where this story is meant to go. And that is the beauty of being in the present moment, is that it flows so beautifully. So part two of my story is that after having resigned and making an effort to see myself through very closed eyes, and at times successfully, but largely unsuccessfully, I knew in my heart that I wanted to share something with my wife. And what I wanted to share with her was the truth. And the truth was that I had been unfaithful to her throughout my entire corporate career. So as I was unfaithful in those years, I figured one day I'm going to get caught, or one day I'm going to tell the truth. And I lived in a state of fear, in a state of misalignment, in the worst state possible to be a role model for my kids, a beautiful partner, and the champion of my own life. And so if you ever have aspirations for yourself, and I'm sure everyone on the planet does, I would love to be this. I would love this. I would love this. It is very unlikely that you will get to where you want to go if you are living in deceit. And my deceit was, my largest deceit was deceiving my wife, Sarah, and being unfaithful. Now, when you realize, when I realize today and I look and examine that deceit, I see that it is not isolated to that. It extends to everything in your life. So you may be well-intentioned like I was, and that sounds terrible to a lot of people probably. What do you mean you were well-intentioned, Alex? What I mean by that is that I still loved Sarah. I still loved human beings. If I told a white lie about a product that I was selling, that it's the best product on the market, or I use it every day and I don't use it every day, I still believed in the product and I still love Sarah. But how could I really claim that if I wasn't living in alignment? And I've only recently discovered that the spectrum of my ability to love is unlimited, and it was completely and utterly blocked, probably in the same way that people's arteries are blocked in their bodies. It's probably exactly the same thing. right? So if you want to live in deceit, go ahead. You're going to constrict all kinds of things. You're going to constrict your opportunity to achieve what you want to achieve. You're going to constrict your ability to be the best person you can be, which then filters into your family and your friends and your work and everything. And you can compensate like I did by taking the energy you have and using that energy with no rest. And that's what I did for 19 years. And then add the other years that I was still living in denial, banging my head against the wall. I have energy. Holy fuck, do I have energy? I've always had energy. And in the midst of the worst person I ever was, I still had energy to spare. Energy that you could not believe that I could command and use when I compartmentalized and got into that energy zone, which is what allowed me to be successful and accomplish those things that I wanted to accomplish. I want to make the money. I want the car. I want the house. I want the pool. Okay. Compartmentalize, channel the energy, get it done, and everything else is constricted. The arteries in your body, the muscles around your eyes, your friendships, everything is constricted. So when you ask me, Alex, what do you mean by seeing your wife? What I mean is that really the first step to opening my eyes was Brady being stabbed. It's like they opened a little bit, but I could hardly see. I'm like this baby who's born and the baby doesn't see anything. It's just all a blur. But now they're aware that there's something out there. I became aware that there's something out there. And it's almost as though Brady's, well, it is the way. Brady's stabbing was the window, the opportunity I needed to quit. And I did that myself, right? I didn't stay in the company and keep on going. I made that decision. It was the first decision I'd made from my heart in a long time. And the second biggest one, which was bigger than that one, was to tell Sarah about my infidelity, to actually tell her. And it was coming with my eyes half shut in this reborn phase and not seeing too much. I knew in my heart, you're going to tell Sarah, you're going to tell Sarah, because I could feel our love growing. I'm more present. I work from home now. I'm not traveling all the time. I'm not seducing women everywhere I go. I feel more in love. And with that heart opening up, I knew that I would tell her. And I had played it out. Like I prayed that when I tell her, it's not the end. And I mean, there came a time as well where I had to reconcile that. And I had to say, that's not fair. That desire is actually not fair. What you need to do, Alex, is you need to be honest, open your heart and be honest, and tell Sarah the truth and surrender to her power. Because this is the part that hurts. Ooh, this hurts. Ooh, this one hurts. Not only me, but I'm the huge culprit here. I squashed her power for years. I did that with my deceit. I did that. And I was protecting myself by saying, don't post here, because I was afraid that someone would see me and my wife and then call me out on my bullshit. And so I limited Sarah. And when I told her, I reconciled in my mind before that when you tell her, you give her her power back. It is her power, not yours to hold. It is her power. And what that meant to me was, Sarah, you leave if you want to. It is your decision because you hold the power. It is your power. When I tell you and you process that, you have every right to do whatever it is you want to do. I surrender. You walk away, you tell me you want to stay, you tell me you want to think about it, we work on it. It doesn't matter to me what the answer is. I know what my answer is. I want to be with you. I love you. That's my answer. But if she was going to walk away, I would have been okay with that. It would have hurt like hell, and I would have lamented it to the day I died. But she didn't. She didn't walk away. And my behavior was atrocious in those years, the deceit. So that was her power speaking to me. And I felt that power. And I knew at that moment, I will honor that power for the rest of my life. I will honor that power. Whew. And I did not realize whatsoever that I could have seen myself at that moment, but I didn't. I chose to look at Sarah. And I still didn't see her fully at that moment. And I certainly didn't see myself fully. Because the ego was still online and still fighting the new me. So the new me is like there in this body of mine, and it's only half there. It's inhabited equally as much by the old ego and equally as much by the new one. But I knew when I told her, and before I told her, actually, I knew way before I told her, I would never, ever cheat on her again. Ever, ever. That was a non-negotiable to me. And so now I tell her, and we begin to work on our relationship, and the ghost of cheating is gone now. But what I didn't realize is that as those egos are fighting one another, there are other things attached to my behavior, that habit, the cheating habit, that are the same but different. And we might see those things on different spectrum levels, but really they're the same. Let me give you an example. Is it okay to continue to watch porn after you say you're not going to cheat? I think most people listening to this podcast would say, no, they're going to put their arms up and go, no. But I tell you, you would have a contingent of people who say, under some circumstances, maybe that's okay. And so I saw that pretty soon afterwards, after revealing the truth to her. Oh, that needs to go. And oh, that flirtatious behavior needs to go. Oh, this behavior needs to go. Oh, this one. And so in the next 3 years, we're a slow series of realizations of like, okay, that goes. Okay, that goes. Okay, that goes. One after the next, after the next. And that process is tough. There's a real fight going on inside you. There's a real fight. The egos are really fighting. That old ego is clawing on, is hanging on for dear life. It's part of the program. And the new one is like, yeah, but this is what I want, right? And it's much more peaceful. It's much more loving. It's not going to fight. It's not going to box. But the way it communicates is through the heart. My new ego, anyways. Whereas the old one, its primary means of communication was through the mind. So I was battling the two egos. And it's not to say today I don't see it as like throwing the old ego out, the whole thing is gone. No, there are parts of the mind from that ego that are beautiful. I have a beautiful mind. I've always had a beautiful mind and an ability with that mind. I was using it nefariously. And that is tragic. It's tragic. So that's act 2 of my life, is becoming honest, the road to honesty, the road to truth. And one domino has fallen after the next. Sometimes it took me a week to push another domino down, and other times it took me a couple of months. Like the span in between those dominoes falling was long. And sometimes the old ego would come back online and challenge me. And yeah, it was a real process. So yeah, I would say that really is act 2. And I just have to, again, honor Sarah for sticking with me and learning with me. Yeah. Yeah, learning with me.
So is it, and I know people listening to this will obviously want me to call you out on the behaviour and all that, which is fine, and I'm not going to be an arsehole about it. I obviously don't condone what you did, but respect the fact that you've owned up to it and you're moving forward with it. When I kind of asked about the when you first saw Sarah, was it in the moment when you told her and her response to you about what you told her? What, when you say you first saw her, what is it? It's hard to ask the question. Is it something you kind of physically felt from her reaction to what you told her? What was that moment when you say you first saw her? What was it? If you could
Mm.
just talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I'd love to. So we had been working on our spirituality, for a lack of a better word, together prior to that, exploring who we really are. And I had come to a point where at times I could access who I really was. And in those moments, what was left was truth, right? There's nothing else. Nothing else was important. And it was during one of those moments. Now, I had several lead ups where it was like I got to that place and then phew, it just deflated quickly and I didn't own up to my behavior. But on the evening that I did, it was not planned. I did not go into that day thinking today is the day. We were in the moment, deeply in love, and I said it. And that's one of those moments that I saw her completely and utterly. And when I say that, what I mean specifically is that I saw her completely and utterly at that moment to my level of awareness. And that was as large as it got in that moment, which was glorious and beautiful and as fulfilling as you could ever imagine. Now, I will tell you that there is no limit to your level of awareness, it is unlimited. And so today, when I see Sarah, what I see is even larger, and what I feel is even larger. So, to get even more specific with your question, what I saw was what I felt. It really was a feeling. It's a feeling, right? You feel completely and totally in love. You feel completely free. You feel only truth, which is why truth came out in that moment. Sarah, I have cheated on you, right? Or whatever the exact words I said was something to that effect. But it just, that's not me speaking anymore. It wasn't me speaking anymore. It's just truth coming out, right? Zoop. And those moments actually um, exist, and you're capable of accessing them at any given instant in your life. That's act three. That's act three. You're able to see and be in truth at any moment you so choose. So that was a defining moment of where I go from Brady stabbing, eyes open a little bit, to truth with Sarah, eyes open a little bit more, and ego still fighting for the next couple of years. That happened in, I want to say probably 2023 or something, that revelation to Sarah, somewhere around there. I'm not 100% sure, but so it's been years since then, and the ego has still been there, like a large part of that ego, the competitive Alex, the I want to continue feeding the bank account Alex, the I'm right, Alex. That ego, I had like basically said that cheating ego is gone. But what I didn't realize was that I was cheating in other ways, right? You know, when I'm like attracted to a woman still, it's like, whoa, like you're cheating, right? And that's a nuance that for anyone listening or watching, that's for you to determine. Like you may sit at your computer or wherever, however you're consuming this podcast, and you may go, that's not the way I see it, Alex. And I acknowledge that. I think that's beautiful. I acknowledge it the way you want to acknowledge it. What constitutes cheating for you? Well, mine has been an evolution, right? You know, stopping to physically cheat was the first step for me, and I thought it was the end all be all, but it certainly wasn't. It's like, oh, that next step. And those came quickly, I must admit. But then other things like have come more recently. And so it's like, that. And now it's like, I don't watch the dominoes fall once a week. I don't watch them fall once a day. Like I knock down an entire set now instantly. It's like ping, I just hit them and just go poof, and watch an entire set of dominoes go down now. And the unfolding revelations are present now for the next, let's just use a block of time. For example, like for the next 24 hours after you've knocked that domino down, you just look around you and you go, oh, it's spilled into that. Oh, it's spilled into that. And the next morning you wake up and you go, oh, it's spilling into this. Ah, how interesting. And so everything just comes into focus for you. We've been talking a lot about, seeing today. Everything just comes into focus when you're in those moments, and when truth comes out, when you are in truth, I call it. So if you're curious about Act 3 is really the integration of all of these things that I had been learning. And when I started the company with Marcy, we were given the gift of people's stories, and that is a tremendous responsibility and a beautiful gift to hold, people's stories. So people come to us and they're like, I want to write a story. You guys are storytellers and you're awesome developmental editors. Can you help me write my story? And the answer is always yes, if the project aligns. And so when we began to bring customers on, clients on, and they shared their stories with us, I began to learn and see myself in every single story. And every single story has an element of trauma in it, whether you're writing fiction or nonfiction. Otherwise, it's a flat story. And typically, those stories end up being uninteresting to people. So we teach people how to write stories that more resemble real life. And what I mean by that is they have moments of tension, moments of trauma, moments of disaster, moments of euphoria, moments of triumph, moments of recognition, right? This is a life. This is a day. In a day, you've got all of these things happening. And so we teach people the science of the story in addition to the heart behind the story. And when those two things come together, they're really beautiful. Look, I don't have to reinvent the wheel. There are so many brilliant people who have analyzed stories to death and who will show you the formula. Okay, a really good story starts in stasis. This is the way things are. And it then needs a trigger, right? You need a trigger. Like, what is it that kicks off your story? Right. And then you need some rising action. So you need a quest. You got to go on a quest. And throughout that quest, we're going to have lots of moments of tension and trauma, because the reader wants to be engaged and they want to understand the story through their own eyes and their own experiences. And if they can't do that literally, they'll do that emotionally. Oh my God, you lost your dad? My God, I lost a brother. I lost a sister. I lost a toy. Whatever it is, you end up relating to that. And so we teach people the art of creating an awesome story. And so in Working Writers Co., I've had the tremendous privilege, honor, and gift of holding these stories and being able to help people understand how that story is built, how it resonates, how to tell it best, and how to look at it from different perspectives. And my computer screen just froze there, so I want to reiterate that. How to look at your story from different perspectives. This is major, major stuff, Ian, major stuff. I deal with all kinds of writing, fictional writing, thrillers, erotic books, that I didn't work on because I felt that would be not so good for my ego. So my partner worked on that project. And that's an indication of me being awake and understanding my ego doesn't need that and doesn't want it. So, hey, Marcy, are you able to work on this project? Marcy says, yes, I am. Perfect. We tell the client, listen, it's going to be Marcy working on this project. Alex was once a son of a bitch cheater, and this is not good material for him to be in. So I could handle it today. And I probably could have handled it that time, but I felt, and my wife felt, it was right for me to not be in that situation. So in any event, we help people with all kinds of stories. A lot of the stories we work on are memoir. And so in memoir, what you're doing is you're not telling your whole story, but you're telling different parts of your story. And a way to do that really resonates is to look at those parts through different lenses. And when you're writing a book, there's all kinds of techniques you can use to see the story through different perspectives. And for someone who's uninitiated and hasn't done a lot of writing, they might not know what all those tools are. And I'll share just a couple of them right now. One of the ways you can do that when you're writing a memoir and writing in first person is you're writing the story, and this is what happened. You're documenting it. Now you can introduce another character who begins dialoguing with you as a character, and that character has a take on the situation, which allows the reader to see that situation from a whole other perspective, right? That's one method you can do it, but there are lots of methods. And one of the methods I really appreciate is the reflective voice method. So if I'm chronicling my journey when I was 17 years old and I'm 50 today, I can write in the reflective voice, and I can say, now I see this situation, blah, 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 blah. And so not only do I give you the story when I was 17 and I feed you all the emotions that were going through me at that time, but I reflect on it today and I say, I see how this set me up for failure. Today, I would never do it this way. I would do it. And so you begin to see that story in a lot of different ways. And so the reason I'm sharing this with you is that throughout my tenure of being a book coach, a developmental editor, a creativity coach, what has happened is that I've come across stories that have hit me in the heart. Every single one of them actually has, but some of them come at the right time, at the right place. I would actually say all of them do, but one in particular, most recently, has done that, and it has catapulted me into Act 3 in such a way that is hard to describe. It's like I am moving at a speed that is far greater than light speed. And I know from the physics perspective that physicists will tell you that's the absolute speed. You can't go any faster. And I will argue you can go way faster when you are in between those breaths and you are in that moment of presence. You've got all the bandwidth and all the speed in the world. So this particular book is written by a woman by the name of Catherine Warnick. And Catherine Warnick came to us. She was a forensic scientist for many years. And she was pioneering forensic science techniques at around the time when the O.J. Simpson trial came to light. And people were becoming awake to this powerful tool, forensics. Holy smokes, you can see truth in forensics. You can see well beyond the fingerprints now. We can do DNA analysis, and we can do all kinds of things. So this was Catherine's background, and this was her window to truth. And she became so good at what she did that she began training people across the United States and ultimately around the world. And one day decided that, I don't know if I love what I'm doing anymore. I don't know if I love it. It is very black and white, and there doesn't seem to be a lot of room for humility. And humility was something that Catherine was searching for. And so she switched professions, went back to school, got her credentials to become a psychotherapist, and became a psychotherapist, and even pioneered some of her own techniques. And when you're in the world of therapy, you are looking inward, right? Because in order to help somebody, you have to understand how you do that yourself. At least the very best psychotherapists are going to have an understanding of how that works within. And so she began to do work on herself. And I don't want to give away her book because she shares this information. So I'm actually going to abbreviate this even more. Suffice it to say that in doing this work, she comes across some studies. And these studies are about the power of psilocybin, magic mushrooms, right? And she is intrigued, but lets a few years go by and continues to see some studies and decides that I'll give it a try therapeutically. And I'm not going to share her story here, but one experience, the first experience is kind of like opening those eyes a tiny bit, like my experience of Brady's death, but not really quite being able to see yet. And then ultimately having those eyes blown wide open. And today she is a pioneer in the field of PAT, psilocybin assisted therapy. She is a giant. She is what I would say, she is the best of the best in terms of what she does, how she does it, the heart she brings to it, her authenticity, and her love. And I see this fully in her book. It is such a magnificent book. And I had tried mushrooms when I was in university, I think twice, maybe three times, but twice that I can remember. And they were both recreational, both of those times. And I didn't have a humongous psychedelic effect because I probably didn't take too much. I was always guarded about what I put in my body. But I do remember the leaves moving a little bit on the trees and the trees kind of moving. And I remember feeling so connected to nature and feeling one. And I always filed that experience in my mind and in my heart as a positive experience. It was always a positive experience. And so when I read Catherine's book and understood just how amazing she is at what she does, I asked if I could, fly down to her state of New Mexico and do a session with her. And she said, I can do better. I can fly up to Canada and I can help you. And she did that recently. And one of the things that happens when you do PAT, psilocybin assisted therapy, and you do it with a professional like Catherine, is that you consciously and intentionally work on and identify what it is you want to work on or where it is you are stuck in life. And for me, I was stuck on forgiveness, forgiving myself. I was experiencing an unbelievable new relationship with my wife, Sarah, but I felt its limits. I felt its boundaries. And I was like, wow, like I've surpassed anything I could have imagined 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago. But I've hit a boundary for some reason. And I wonder if my love can expand. I wonder if this great relationship we have, which has tons of triggers, which is so beautiful and so painful at the same time whenever a trigger comes up, I wonder if it can get better. And so working with Catherine, I set that as my intention. And the wording around the creation of my intention was, how much better can my relationship get with Sarah? How much more can I open my heart to Sarah and with Sarah? And coupled with that intention number one was to understand my deceit, my prior deceit, and to forgive myself. I had not been able to forgive myself. I thought maybe I had been able to, but I had not been able to. And so when I did my PAT session under the guidance of Catherine, I saw Sarah in a way that eclipsed what I saw on the night that I told her the truth. And what I told her, what I felt on that night was magnificent. I would wish that on everybody. I would wish that feeling on everybody. Everybody has to feel that feeling of how unbelievable that feeling of truth is. And yet, in my PAT treatment, there was a moment that repeated itself again and again and again and again. And I'm not going to share the intimate details of that moment, but I will tell you that I saw Sarah so completely and so wholly that it opened my heart to the bounds of existence and shut it like it was being crushed and extinguished by the greatest force that has ever existed in the universe, all at once. The pain and the joy that I felt and I feel right now was everything. Everything. And in that infinite moment, I saw myself finally. Fucking finally. Holy smokes. Oh my God. And I was moved to the end of the universe and crushed into nothingness again and again and again and again, over and over again. So many fucking times you just can't imagine. Exhausting, enlightening, beautiful, everything just over and over and over again. And it answered my question. Can I open my heart even more? And can my relationship be greater? Yep. Yep. Can I truly see the pain I caused? Can I truly see myself? Can I truly see the evil character that I was, that perhaps I am? And the answer is yes. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. You can feel it. And it takes a tremendous amount of courage to be open to feeling that. But I had done it twice before. I quit. I quit my job. And for some people listening to this podcast, that might be quite easy for you. That was hard for me. That was a really hard one for me. So for me, that was a mountain to climb. Telling Sarah the truth, that was a mountain to climb, right? That was big for me. So I had practice. And so when I said, I'll take it, I'll take it, I'll take everything you can throw at me, I will take it, give it to me. That included the pain and the love. And what I realized today is that we can deal with a lot. Every one of us can deal with everything. You know, we often say, I don't know how you dealt with that. I don't know how you did that. I don't know how you got through that. I couldn't have. Boy, like, poor you. Those are all valid comments. And I can only say that in my experience, I see my dark side and I see my light side, and I can hold them. I can hold them. And it's unbelievable to be able to hold those things. It is unbelievable to be able to hold those things. I mean, I feel like that's probably as much as I want to share today. There's so much more. But what I want to do, Ian, because I'm so grateful for this space that you've created. And I think what you're doing is amazing. I think that, well, I know that I appreciate your energy. I really do. I really do. And so I want to give back to you, and I want to end my monologues and give you the floor. Is there anything that you want to ask me, or is there anything that you want to know? I would be happy to open my heart and let you know my truth.
Yeah, just I would like to circle back to something we were touching on earlier, but just before we do that, to say around the forgiveness side of things, this is such a powerful tool for people. Learning the art of forgiveness, and if you're someone who has had something wrong done to them by somebody else, when I'm talking about forgiving, it's not about forgiving that person and then letting everything go and the feeling and and wanting to even talk to them and that kind of thing. It's not about that. It's about creating energetic space for yourself to be able to let go of all of the pain and the negative energy that it has caused and stored up in you, to allow you to then open up and create an awareness to better opportunities for yourself. Because you'll be surprised when you're holding that negative energy for somebody who's done something to you, or something you've done to somebody as well, and you need that to forgive yourself. It limits what you can do, and it limits your awareness to opportunities around you. So I think the art and the tool of forgiveness is such a huge thing for people to be able to learn. So I just wanted to kind of tag that on to what you were saying then, because I know what as part. So I don't know whether you know, but I'm a coach as well. So I kind of taught people through this forgiveness part, and I know I went the program I train and coach people in. I've been through myself, and I've had to go through that forgiveness stage myself, and I struggle big time.
Yeah, I think we all do.
Yeah, I really did, and I'm still on that journey now. But just to circle back to something we were talking about a little earlier, that moment between breaths.
Mm.
Me, um, as you said it instantly triggered in my head something that, um, so I love adventure and going out into the mountains. And people who've listened to this podcast have heard me tell this before. Um, but there's a moment on every trail and every mountain that I'm climbing where it's that moment between breaths, and you just completely, any stresses, overwhelm just melts away, and you just overcome with this sense of peace and freedom. And you can really, and I wrote this in my, so I wrote a book to try and help me explain this moment because I was so terrible at explaining this moment.
Right,
That
right.
this is one line that kind of sticks out to me, and as I was writing it, I thought, oh, that's a nice little line. Well done, Ian, because I'm not a great writer by any stretch of the imagination. But it was is about stepping back from the noise long enough to hear the whispers of what truly matter. And to me, when you said the moment between breaths, that is that line and that moment I feel on the mountains, or when I was in that bar that night listening to that saxophone, just killing it. And when I heard some beautiful piano being played, those are the moments that really I try to weave into as much of my life as I possibly can, which is why I've created this podcast, because I love
Mm.
having conversations with people and I love talking about this kind of stuff. And it brings that moment between breaths. As parts of the conversation that we have will stick out to me, which are those moments. Um, and I'm so invested in people discovering their kind of purpose and their journey and where they are sailing to, and that North Star that is shining for them. And I just wanted to kind of understand what that's like for you, that moment between breaths, and just explore that a little more. I know we're kind of running on for quite a bit here, but I feel like we could go on loads of different tangents with everything you've
Sure.
said. So to have you come back home. But yeah, if you could just kind of talk about that a little minute for a minute and what that kind of means to you.
Yeah, I'd be delighted to do that. And I want to thank you for sharing your moment with me because the passion that comes through when you speak about your passion of being in the mountains and experiencing that moment. I got it. You sent it over through the airwaves, and it landed, and I feel that, like I breathe that in, and I think that most of us, engaging in this podcast right now, can think of a time when you stopped and saw a tree or a flower, or you connected with nature somehow. Nature is so pure and so honest that it's a beautiful portal to truth. And that's why I think it's it's probably easier in nature climbing a mountain to experience those things because you're in truth, you're nestled in truth. And so if you really feel that, then you get it. So I just want to point that out to everybody who is listening, that those, we'll call them inception points. Those inception points are all around you. And so when you ask me about the moment between the breath, I had a very profound experience recently. It's such a long story that I'm trying to figure out a way to abbreviate it. But what I'm going to say is that the discovery, without sharing the whole story, is that the breath is natural, like the tree that we pass by and stop and fall in love with. And so the breath we don't have to think about. And you're breathing in the beautiful oxygen and you're exhaling a beautiful byproduct of that oxygen through your own body. It is completely and totally natural. And so it is another gateway, it is another portal or another inception point to that moment of eternity, that moment of, some people call it moment of nothingness, and that's valid as well. Nothing, everything. And I recently realized, after not having focused on my breath deliberately for quite a long time, because when I came across people who were doing breath work, it didn't resonate for me. And so I just let it fly by me. I didn't realize the power of the breath. Sometimes there's a joy in discovering it yourself. And other times you're like, why did I waste all those years and not just listen to that person? She told me, normally that's my wife, but why
Isn't it
didn't I?
always?
So it ultimately, I ended up finding my own breath. Okay. That's the abbreviated. I found my own breath. I won't tell you how. And what I realized is that every breath out comes to an end. Oh, no shit, Alex. Okay, you're not telling me anything new here. But if you really stop and you really follow that thought for a moment, that breath ends. And if we were to end that breath where it ended, your life would end. That's it. No more in-breath. That's it. Your life would end. And then we have this moment before the next breath begins. That is a gap between exhaling and inhaling. It is a gap, and it is identifiable, and it is quantifiable, and it exists because it has to exist. It's there. Can't argue it. There's a moment between the exhale and the inhale. And when that inhale comes and you know you're at the end of your breath, and if you weren't to breathe anymore, you would be dead. When you take that breath, that next breath, it is grace. It is a gift that you are being given, and it is a gift that you are giving yourself. And so right there, it is the essence of being supported by something greater than you, by everything. And it is the essence of understanding that you support yourself. So in that very sacred moment, you are everything, and you are this singular, tiny being all by yourself. You are everything and nothing. You are both these things. And when that grace comes and you realize the gift you've been given by everything and by yourself, it's like it is metaphorical of a rebirth. And you are literally breathing a new life into yourself. And I realized, this is my realization, might not be true for you, but it's true for me, that, oh my God, how did I not see this? I realized that with every breath, I am living and dying. Every single breath. That's what I realized. I'm like, wow, I live and I die every moment. I live and I die every moment. And so I followed that thought for a little while. Wow, you live to the end of your breath, and then there's that moment that is an eternity. And then you breathe in again and you are alive again. And I began to understand the degree to which we have the ability to take that entity, which is our ego, and say, leave. It's time to leave. And so that ego that was clawing on for so long, that was stabbed on the day that Brady was stabbed, I am finally preparing its funeral. And I have a name for it. It's a personal name, and I'm not going to share it because I might write a book about it. But I have a name for it, and it's a ghost of sorts, this ego. And today, I see that ghost flicker. It's there, but it doesn't really inhabit me anymore. Every once in a while, it comes and visits. So these two egos that I've been talking about, it's like, almost out, almost out, almost out, almost out, gone. I'll come back for a visit, come back for a visit. It's just on the periphery. And I don't know what the next step is for me, Ian. I don't know if, that ego will just disappear altogether. But at the moment, I acknowledge that it's actually finally dying, and I'm quite okay to let it die because I am in control of my rebirth. And what I ultimately came to the realization of is that I am in control of my rebirth with every breath. So I have the conscious ability to rebirth myself. And if I wanted to change the ego entirely today, right now, I could. I have the tools. I've done it before now. I know how to do it. I could do it much more gracefully. but I don't want to. I love this new ego. And that will change over time. That will evolve. That will do whatever it needs to do and unfold the way that only this great power knows. And I am part of that great power. So I have that ability. And that's what being in between the breaths means to me.
Nice. What a beautiful place to leave it. Thank you very much, Alex. How can people get in touch with you?
Feel free to email me. I'm at alex@workingwritersco.com. So Working Writers Co, WORKingWritersco.com, alex@workingwritersco.com. And you can check out our website, workingwritersco.com as well. You can find me on social media as well. We have a Working Writers Co Instagram account. Yeah, those would be the best ways to connect with me.
Excellent. And I'll say it on air. We will have you back on because there's so many different places we could have taken that conversation then. So I'd love to have you back on to kind of revisit those places. So thank you very much, Alex. I've really appreciated having you on, and I've loved the conversation.
Thank you for having me, Ian. I appreciate you. I really do. Thank you.
Have you ever felt like business should be more than numbers and deadlines? Like there's an entire world to explore beyond your office walls? Is adventure calling your name? I'm Ian Whitehead, and I'm your guide on Uncharted, the Entrepreneur's Adventure podcast, where I bring you real stories from visionary leaders who've built empires and climbed literal mountains. Because success isn't just about the bottom line, it's about the thrill of taking risks, the courage to pursue what truly lights you up, and the freedom to chart your own course. Each week we'll dive deep into the minds of boundary-pushing entrepreneurs and adventurers, revealing how they found purpose in the chaos and discovered their true north, both in business and beyond. So, if you're ready to break free from the ordinary, embrace bold action and inject a little more adventure into your life, welcome to Uncharted. Your journey starts here.